Hi! Before this video starts, I want to add some things. First of all, I'm sorry it took me so long to make this version. The topic took a lot of mental capacity from me. And since it took me so long, this video will probably be out too late. I will still translate it as close as possible to the German version, so don't be confused if I name a date which is already behind us. Either way, I hope you have as much fun with the video as possible. Hey yo! How's it going? How are things standing? Today I'm going to talk about a topic that I usually like to avoid. Politics. I'm going to limit myself to the current situation in Germany because, well, I'm just there and have more connection to it. That's why this is a video that's probably less relevant to the English channel, but that doesn't bother us. Hopefully. But I don't want to let the video get too out of hand, because the topic can easily go on for half an hour or even several hours. So I'll just touch on a few points that drive me crazy, especially because people seem to be blind to it. So let's get started. And where better to start than in the middle of it? We live in a Germany whose people and the things that are said make me fear the future and make me feel honestly disgusting for how I was born. Whenever I see something like this, I always feel the need to say, as a German, I want to distance myself from this for kilometers. And why is that? I don't want to be too specific, but there are certain people who I'm sure you know who like to spread hate. Especially towards people who were simply born somewhere else, or I'm saying with quotation marks, born differently, and can't help their crisis. And then another party wants to form a coalition with something like that. Questionable.
Fake laugh, hiding real pain.
Now, some might ask themselves, but why does that scare you? It's just politics, and it won't affect you either way. Shh, don't say that. It just makes you look dumber. In a country like this that threatens us, virtually no one is safe. Freedom of speech is very likely to be restricted. In addition, although it is largely tolerated to accepted in Germany that someone belongs to the LGBTQIA+ community, there are still enough people who don't approve of it. People who are still trying to cure these people because being who they are is a disease in their eyes. It's not, by the way. I have another video planned for this, which would go beyond the scope of the ramen here. This is a German pun. It doesn't really work here, so in German you say, das sprengt den Rahmen. It's directly translated to, this explodes the frame. So frame is Ramen, but it also sounds like ramen, the noodles. Okay, enough jokes explained, back to the video. In a country like that, I'd have to be careful what I say, and if I say something in general, I'd probably even be tempted to climb back into my closet to make sure a certain someone in my life wasn't in danger. I can't know how far that will go, and even if it doesn't affect you at all, simply because you are in a heteronorm, you are heterosexual, cisgender, or you're white. Even then, I hope you have the ability to empathize with others. Just a little bit. Imagine a world where the heteronorm is not accepted, where the roles are reversed, and you would have to worry about being in danger now. Get some of the empathy out of you to see that no one deserves this, and no one chooses it. And keep enough sense not to be lulled by the hate. Now I want to jump back in time a little. In 1871, the right to vote was introduced in what was then the German Empire, restricted only for male citizens. This put an end to the monarchy. In 1918, after the First World War, women were also allowed to vote. I say this to emphasize that this was not always the case, that the right to vote cannot be taken for granted. It is important and powerful. There are people who don't use it because, why, it's no good anyway, which is terrible, because the people you don't support get your votes, even if you don't vote. Or they give it away to teach the other parties a lesson. What if more people did that could lead to this terrible future, or perhaps to the past after all? That's right, Germany has already made a huge mistake when it comes to voting. Back then you can make a few excuses for it. They didn't know any better, or It was the first time it had been exploited like that. And yes, I'm willing to give them that, especially because we talked about the promises in history class. It all sounded good, and then it was turned around and used. But what if Germany goes in this direction again? Right, you have no excuses. The people who vote in favor have the past, the history books, and everything that is obvious, but they ignore it. Speaking of history lessons, in my school days I often had this subject in my lessons, but one thing stuck with me for years afterwards. Story time! I can't remember which class it was, probably 8 to 10, somewhere around there, probably 9 or 10. Anyway, in my opinion we had one of the best history teachers ever. A legend, really. She also talked to us about the economy and showed us that the economy repeats itself in waves. It goes up and then down again. We'll need that in a moment. Remember it. We traveled to a concentration camp and we did the tour. I felt so damn uncomfortable being there. At the end of the tour, we were in huts where they had showers, toilets, and tables and benches. We sat on the benches and she gave us a little speech. Unfortunately, I can't remember the exact wording, but the message stuck with me. History is repeating itself. We are responsible for seeing the signs and preventing it. At the time, she was the first and only person in my circle who seemed to see this and voiced it. Shortly afterwards, however, someone else came along who said the same thing. Maybe you have heard of him. A little darling, Rezo. I have to interrupt again. I'm so sorry, but I'm not sure how well known Rezo is outside of Germany. He's a pretty big influencer. He used to make a lot of YouTube videos, musical ones, comedic ones, etc. Now he's mainly streaming on Twitch. I don't know if that helps, but yeah, now you have the info, now we can continue.
Doch jetzt mal Real Talk, denn es gibt kein Happy End, wenn keiner die Geschichten aus unserer Geschichte mehr kennt. Meine Bücher sind voll mit Fehlern, aus denen wir lernen müssen. Die letzten Zeugen sterben bald, aber wir dürfen nicht vergessen. Alles, was hier drin steht, kann doch garantiert nochmal so sein. Ängste, Panik, Feindbild und das Narrativ, Opfer zu sein. Auch wenn manche gern so tun, als wäre es nicht so schlimm gewesen. Wer selbst so eine Scheiße denkt, sollte ein Geschichtsbuch lesen. Jeder, der mich kennt, weiß, darauf läuft es immer raus. Wenn die meisten einfach gar nichts machen, reichen ein paar Spinner aus.
It hit home then, and it still hits home today. Because it's still a problem.
Ich entschuldige mich bei der Mutter von des Kindes.
Du musst dich nicht entschuldigen. Du kannst nichts dafür.
Aber manche denken, weil ich ein Afghaner bin, dass ich böse bin.
This video, I would like to emphasize it once again. This little girl, because of racism, hatred, felt like she had to apologize for someone, apologize for something she didn't do. And only because these damn hostile views are there and are strengthened as if there was something to it. There is nothing to it. There's nothing at all. It has nothing to do with anything. Please stop it. There are children living in fear in Germany because they don't have the right skin color or something else. What's wrong with you? And I didn't understand it then, nor do I understand it now. Why people don't manage to deal with each other on a human basis, where respect, tolerance, and acceptance, those three things are really at the top, and you try to create a degree of harmony. Instead, we always have people who believe they should be above someone else for completely arbitrary reasons. The people who say, hey, I was randomly born here and therefore I'm better than you who was randomly born somewhere else. What the bloody stupid? Do you understand that? That is being born and how we are born. It's a lottery game. There are winnings in this lottery game. Yes, genetically, a nice metabolism, right? Great, can lose weight quickly and so on and so forth, can get into a healthy range faster, or has totally great skin. Whatever, these are genetic gains. What is not a genetic gain is the color of the skin, or other traits that aren't white, I guess. That is just racism. Because the color of your skin or other characteristics give you neither an advantage nor a disadvantage. Although there are advantages and disadvantages to certain skin colors. Not what you might think now. So the advantage is not that just because you're white that you are somehow better, because there is no such thing. No. What advantages there are, for example, is a better resistance to sunlight. I, for example, as I mentioned earlier, I am as white as the wall behind me, and I can't really go out in the sun. I become red, well, I get sunburned faster than I get a tan on my skin. That's a disadvantage for me. But apart from that, it shouldn't say anything about me or my status in society, because that simply has nothing to do with each other. Genetics should not dictate how you are in society or where you stand in society. These are two different topics that don't determine anything, that don't presume anything. My skin color, or rather our skin color, should not be able to determine where we are in society, because that's just nothing. Otherwise, there are really no advantages or disadvantages to the skin color. And if all this is not enough, I would like to mention the Holocaust survivors again, Albrecht Weinberg and Luigi Toscano. These men experienced it back then, and it is these men who want to hand in their Federal Crosses of Merit for surviving it because they see history repeating itself. And this after the approval of a certain party's 5-point plan. I hope this has set off at least a few alarms. There are elections on February 23rd, 2025. You have the right, no, the privilege to vote. Please go and vote. And please, please vote with your heart and your mind.